Hello everyone, welcome to the talk show series brought to you by WIRC of ICAI, Learning from the Legend. I am Sunil Goyal, your host, and we have very first guest Sri Bansidhar Sundarlal Mehta, popularly known as Sri Bansi Bhai. Sri Bansi Bhai has served our institute as the president exactly 4 decades ago, and we all know him for his annual budget speech and the unparalleled contribution he has made to the profession and the institute. An ocean of knowledge, a true statesman, and a great human being, Sri Bansi Bhai has a lot to learn from. And in today's session, we will endeavor to unfold many chapters to learn from him and what it takes to be like Bansi Bhai Mehta. Welcome, Bansi Bhai. And may I request Chairman of WIRC of ICAI, Sri Manish Gadia, please present a memento to him.
You want to get up?
No.
That's politeness, but it's not very convenient.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bansi Bhai, how were your initial school days and the challenges you faced? I believe you were in Bhardai school.
I was in Berda school, and that was perhaps the oldest school in Mumbai at that time. In fact, I attended the centenary celebration of Berda school a couple of years back. The school was a cosmopolitan school, started by a Parsi, but over a period of time it became a conglomeration of various Muslims, Bohris, Christians, Catholics, Gujaratis, Hindus, and it gave me a certain build-up in life by which I became an incorrigible secularist.
Oh, that's fine.
I couldn't change my views in all these years because in the school we used to have all kinds of religions, and then we'll have meal together sometimes and somebody is eating something which I would never touch. So the schooling was very important in my build-up.
So what are your good memories those days which you are still
The
carrying?
school days?
Yes.
The school days, I remember that my first year in the school, when I shifted to Bhadda school in 47. So that is the year in which India became independent.
Wow. Oh, that's good.
So we had a function, and at that function from each class they had selected a person to read Pandit Nehru's speech on accepting the independence and the day appointed by destiny. It's such a famous speech, and we had all to recite that speech in 5-7 minutes. And that gave me the kind of experience, or if you like, confidence of public speaking.
Oh, that's good. I understand that you also wrote an essay on if you were the Education Minister of India, and I think that gave you some more insight.
You see, what had happened was that there was a contest organized by Balkanji Bari, All India. Balkanji Bari was an All India organization for children.
Okay.
So they had organized the contest if I was the Education Minister of India. So my teacher asked me that I should write the essay. So I told her that I'll write in Gujarati because I am a Gujarati by birth and Gujarati by culture and Gujarati by upbringing, and not that I can't speak or write English, but I prefer writing in Gujarati. And she said,
Your school
it's fine.
was a cosmopolitan.
She said it's fine. And then, as luck would have it, in the All India contest, this was awarded the best essay, whole of India. And that prize was awarded to me by Pandit Nehru.
Wow, that's incredible. That's good. Contrary to belief that you are a scholar in education and academics, but then I believe you had some other interests, other hobbies also during your
music,
and also I think cricket. You had a lot of.
I used to write short stories in Gujarati, and I used to write poems in Gujarati, and I was very fond of reading Gujarati. And in fact, my education in the school was entirely in my mother tongue.
Wow.
Although there were two divisions offering English medium, my father opted for Gujarati medium. And in any case, that was my love.
You would play cricket with your friends.
I did. In fact, fortunately, I was saved from my obsession with cricket, because the first day I went for the practice, and I was an off-break bowler. So the coach said that, where did you learn this? I said, no, I have not learned anything. So he said, I'll recommend that you be included in the school team. Then my father put his foot down. He said, you have gone there for studies, not for cricket.
But cricket, despite your very short height, you were selected in the team.
No, I didn't go for further.
Okay, you did not.
Because my father put his foot down and said that, look, you will be wasting your time. So I didn't pursue cricket.
Yes. So who had influence on you during your
My father.
childhood?
My father, at all times.
Oh, very good. Good. And you had many friends also, I believe, during your school days. So
Yeah, in the school, then in the college, and then after doing my articles, and I had a very large circle of friends, because I was a very friendly person. I am not so friendly
but
now.
you were a scholar right from school days. You were a scholar in your
Yes,
school.
I mean, I hope I don't sound bragging, but I have always stood first.
Wow, that's incredible.
In the school days, I have stood first in all the 4 divisions of the class, in all the 4 years that I was in the school, Vada school. And I stood first in the college. I stood first in the institute. So somehow or the other it happened.
That's it. So what made you to choose this CA profession?
Yeah, that is a very curious explanation. My father was to retire from government service.
I see.
He was goading me to become an IAS.
Wow.
So
those days IAS was
I was the ultimate performance.
Okay, career choice, yeah.
So, but I was underage for IAS. So after doing my BCom, he said, it's going to be another 2 years you have to wait before you become eligible for the IAS exam.
I see.
So why don't you do something? So I said, let me do law. Then somebody suggested that instead of law, why don't you do CA? So I used to joke in my early days that ACA after my name is Accidental Chartered Accountant.
That's right. Bansi bhai, you pursued your articles with GP Kapadia and Company.
Yes.
So how was your experience those days? And
Divine.
wow, that's beautiful.
Divine. Because first of all, the kind of work, the variety, the professionalism at work I saw happening in GP Kapadia and Company. No compromises.
So did you have chance to meet Mr. GP Kapadia time and again?
Many times.
Oh, that's
many times, because it was usually not so. But to give you one example, for example, I stood for intermediate soon after my articles began in August 55. So my result came and I had only 3 days leave. So I was not very sanguine that I'll get some good rank. But as it happened, I stood first.
Oh, that's right.
So he called me inside his cabin, which is unusual for GP Kapadia. He was a very stately person. Then he said that you have won silver medal, which is named after me. It is known as GP Kapadia silver medal. And now you have to get GP Kapadia gold medal.
Oh, that's right.
So,
which you did next year.
Huh?
Which you did in the final.
Which I did, in fact.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. That's wonderful.
But it was more words of encouragement rather than admonition.
So what you are saying, Bansi bhai, that articleship should be taken very seriously, and this is a very important.
Yes, I think one is the intention, and the other is the reality. Now, intention should be that articles should be thoroughly used for getting the training which is required for somebody to start his practice or take an industrial employment.
Yeah.
But by and large, it was found that people did not have the kind of variety of practice. Now, we had this great fortune in G.P. Kapadi and Company that because he was a very innovative person, we had lots of completely original work, investigations. One case in which I won't mention the name, but one case in which in those days an addition of 20 lakhs rupees was made, and there was matter in appeal. That matter was entrusted to our firm, although we were not the original chartered accountant, and we had to prove that the goods which you are including as belonging to me are not my goods. They were just deposited with me for some purpose. So we had to do the entire sequencing of receipt, payment, and come to the conclusion, and we won at the first appellate stage.
Oh.
And I still remember the AAC, as he was then known, later became chairman of CBDT.
So what you are saying that articleship time is very, very important, and this students
very
take it
important,
very seriously,
very
as well
important.
as the principal.
And I think this is where I was fortunate that my father and G.P. Kapadia had studied together in the school.
Oh,
So that was the.
So he was a little extra strict with you.
No, the point is otherwise he was very fussy.
Ah.
But taking someone in articles.
That's it. So Bansi, you have been a very scholar right from your school days, and also in CA inter and final you topped. So what did you do differently than many of us?
Sorry?
You were a topper in CA inter and final. So what differently you did compared to many of us?
I probably I will be saying this with some guilt, but I had a photographic memory.
Wow.
So I didn't have to work as hard as others. I'll give you an example. When I was in primary school, junior school, not Barda school, and there was a teacher who complained that I had copied during my examination. So my father said, my son doesn't copy, he's on his own.
Wow.
So then the headmaster called my father, because there was a complaint by the teacher that I had written exactly the same sentence as it is there in the textbook.
Wow, that's incredible.
So my father laughed and told the principal headmaster that you give him today's Mumbai Samachar. Let him read whatever page you want him to read, a paragraph, etc., and then give him a pencil and a paper, and ask him to write down what he read. And I could write
exactly the same. Wow.
So my memory was something which God has endowed me with,
and also your interpretation abilities. I think that
no, that came by experience.
Oh, right.
Because in G.P. Kapadia and Company, we did a lot of very high level of tax work.
Wow.
It was not ordinary appeal about a disallowance of expenses or anything. And every time there was a major appeal, then Mr. G.P. Kapadia will call me and say, hey, you handle this.
Oh, that's it.
Although I was an article clerk only.
Oh, that's incredible. Bansi, after passing CA, you decided to get into practice, not the job. So, any particular reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an accident. I joke about this by saying that the word ACA after my name is accidental chartered accountant. Because first of all, our family, my father and I, wanted me to be IAS.
Right.
So the reason why I went into articles was that I was underage for IAS. So I was underage by 2 years. Then my father decided that this is only 3 years article. So 1 year later you appear for IAS. So I came through an accident, and I didn't want to be a CA. I wanted to be a government servant, a privileged government servant. So I wanted to be an IAS. But because I was underage, I couldn't do it immediately.
Right.
So ultimately, when my articles were still ongoing, and I had to file the form for IAS, but it required under our regulations the permission of the employer.
Ah, that's right.
So it was sent to him by his PA,
To Mr. J.P. Kapadia.
his PA.
Okay.
He was furious. And then he called my father. My father was a government servant. So he telephoned him and asked him to come immediately. And he fired my father. He said that if you did not have faith in my profession, why did you occupy one seat in my office? He's furious. So my father said that this is the reason. So he said, then don't appear for IAS. You have confidence in. So we said, all right, we'll take the exam after my articles are over. So that we didn't want to annoy him. But I never looked back.
So you got into practice straight away, and those days also the struggle was there to set up the practice, or you had a
Yeah,
easy work?
to some extent, I got referrals from GP Kapadia and Company.
That's very good.
Some special work or a special work, he will say, go and get his. In the beginning, he supported me only in terms of doing some work for GP Kapadia and Company.
But I understand you set up your office with the prize money which you got.
Yeah. See, because my father was a government servant, and my father was a God-fearing, honest person. So I couldn't afford the kind of money which is required. So I got 2 prizes in my final CA, both prizes at the regional level, and that came to 400 rupees, 200 each, 2 prizes, taxation. So 400 rupees were enough for me to buy a chair, a table.
And anyway, computers were not there those days.
The computer was not there.
Right. And a fan.
No, my uncle's office was there.
Okay, so you had that. Yeah, that's right. So in olden days, in fort area, table space with one fan and one common peon used to be the way of beginning of the practice. I remember.
Yeah, no, it was a ground floor office.
Okay.
The ground floor of Reserve Bank of India's next building is Amar Building. So Amar Building was the building, now belongs to Reserve Bank. Amar Building was the building where on the ground floor my uncle had a distributorship office. So I was sitting on a table in the office, and my first partner joined me 6 months later.
Okay.
And he and I, we grew together.
Oh, that's brilliant. Bansi bhai, you were in teaching profession also. Is that by choice or by compulsion to earn something for?
Sorry?
You were in teaching profession also.
Yeah.
You were a teacher.
Yeah, you see, it is like this, that I was told by my professor in the college when I was a student that the rule that only practicing CAs teach in the college is a rule to which he had given a lot of support. So he said, you must teach.
Oh, that's good. So
now, actually, it was teaching only. Actually, the salary was 200 rupees per month. So every time there was a war, in those days there were 2-3 wars. So every time there was a war, there used to be a law passed by Indira Gandhi's government that you surrender your salary to the National Defense Relief Fund.
Oh.
Then you don't pay tax on it. And since I was paying super tax also at that time.
Oh.
65, 62.
Oh, that's brilliant. But you could set up your practice in early days, and you were doing very well. And this teaching profession helped you?
If you compare other beginners, I was doing well. And partly it is because I got a lot of referral work from my old firm, GP Kapadia and Company.
So this teaching profession also helped you in your practice? Your teaching?
GP Kapadia.
You were a teacher, so your teaching?
Yeah, no. Actually, it is more a pleasure. It was a pleasure, and so I did that for 30 years.
So, Bansi bhai, you were a young professional those days in mid 60s or so. So, who had influence on you those days? Who influenced you those days? Your client or
Oh,
your
student
student or
in my when I was teaching there,
no, in your practice time?
practice time.
Who influenced you a lot? Whose influence you had during those
See,
years?
my father,
Again, your father. Okay.
my father.
Any client also you had
Yeah,
somebody
because you
who?
know he was a very simple man, dhoti clad,
Hmm.
God-fearing, and always encouraging me in my effort to be successful.
So, how did you get into the institute politics? I believe nowadays it is a little different than those days, but still it was tough. So, how did you get into that?
No, because you see, I was very, I used to be a speaker at many of our institute functions
On tax.
on tax and sometimes even on other subjects.
Okay.
So I was, let's say, liked by people who came to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody said, "Sir, why don't you stand for election?" I said, "I don't know how to fight an election." I think a couple of friends said that, "No, that is our responsibility."
Oh,
So I stood for election in 1970. And I got Mr. Cabra and myself, we both stood in that year.
oh, wow.
And he and I, both newcomers, got elected.
Okay. Cabra means BL Cabra.
BL Cabra.
Okay. Very good. And you became president in the year 81-82.
Yeah.
And who were there, in the council those days? Your predecessor or?
There were many persons at the time when I became president. There was Mr. Maligam was there,
Oh, wow.
Mr. Narelwala was there. I mean, all
So
stalwarts.
that was an experience in itself to.
And I really got so much from my colleagues in the council that I said so. Actually, if you read my annual speech, I mentioned in detail how I am obliged to the other members of the council for constantly supporting me. But I'm what you might say, you might even call in simple language as a maverick.
Mm-hmm.
I am different from many others.
You are a little restless person, right? You used to be restless person. You would like to do things.
Yeah, that is one. But apart from that, looking at any issue in a different light.
Hmm.
Don't look at it from the hackneyed point of view. So that kind of searchful mentality helped me.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, any good memories of your institute days when you were president and the council member? I think
Yeah, I
three
don't want to
terms.
say anything which really amounts to saying something about the council or the council deliberations, etc. But my own experience as president, I'll just give you 2 or 3 examples. One example was that in our regional council, Western India, they had organized a conference at Aurangabad. And the chairman had asked one institute employee to help him. So he also was asked to come. So the hotel expenses were paid by the institute.
Okay.
And this man put up a claim. He said, "I'm entitled to my TA." Although he had not incurred any expense. So he said, "But the rules are there." So uh, the chairman of the regional council at that time rejected his claim. So there was a big uproar, a staff union, etc. So I was at that time the president of the institute.
Mm-hmm.
So they all came in a big bunch,
Mm.
the institute's office, and they said, "This is not fair. This is our rule." So I asked them to, I said, "Whatever your stream, you please take it out.
Mm.
Don't keep anything for going out. Just give me as much blame as you want to, because I am in a dilemma. Because legally you might be right, but morally you are wrong."
You're right. Very true.
So I said, I have decided that your staff's demand for the TA, we will pay, but I will pay. Institute will not pay.
Wow, incredible. Wow.
And the staff union secretary started weeping. He said, "आप तो साफ देवता हो." He was a Punjabi.
Wow.
So this is something which, but that is because I'm a person with what shall I say, a different outlook towards life's problems, life's answers.
So, Bansi bhai, those days during your time, you had Malegam Saab and many others, that kind of legends, in the institute. So, most people would go there with a selfless motive to serve the profession in the real sense, or they would also have the other motives of self-development and the other.
No, at least I was in the council till 79, I think. No, 82.
82. Yeah.
But I missed one because my nomination form was rejected.
Okay.
One turn I missed in between.
Okay.
So I found that we had a very good team in the council who could think similarly, who could correct each other without feeling any ego or vanity. So Mr. Malegam, Mr. Narelwala, Mr. Damania, by accident all parties.
Right. So you had a very good three thumbs in the institute,
Yes, I think
contributing a lot to the profession.
I thought that my time was something which was very well spent. This 81 I was vice president, 81, 82 I was president.
So if you look at the institute's, personalities, so who influenced you a lot among the past presidents of your time? Whom you think that that person influenced you a lot?
No, I think basically I was inspired by G.P. Kapadia.
Your principal.
The first 3 years of the institute, he was the president of the institute,
right.
and because I had worked in his
So you worked very closely with him.
So for 3 years, so I wanted to follow, and his basic credo was be excellent in whatever you do. Don't accept work unless your terms are acceptable. Don't be greedy, but keep your dignity up.
That's brilliant. Bansi bhai, you have been in the practice for more than 60 years, and you have been a teacher, president of the institute. You had many students also while you were teaching. So, and I believe many of your students have done fantastically well. So, could you narrate some of these names so that, and I believe many of them from our profession.
What I want to say is that if I am not mentioning any chartered accountant's name, it is not because they were not up to my expectations, but
today we are talking in the context of
the first person who was my student was Ajit Gulabchand.
Wow.
Who is Hindustan
at SCC, yes.
I caught him in the class. He was drawing a picture. So
of the Bridges?
Yeah, he was drawing a picture in his notebook.
Okay.
So I asked him. So he said, "I couldn't understand what you were talking about, sir." So I said, "Let me do something which I like." And another person was who later became film star, Vinod Khanna. So Vinod Khanna was a person.
Acha, you taught Vinod Khanna also?
Vinod Khanna, yes, he was in the commerce stream.
Oh, I see.
So I had, he made he was talking and he was making face. So I became very angry and I asked him to leave the class. He went out. He was a tall person, Vinod Khanna.
Yeah.
He went out. And then I completed my lecture, and then eventually I went to get into my car so that I can drive to my office. I found that all the 4 tires were flat.
Oh, somebody.
So I didn't know. Then I got someone from WIA, which is next door,
Right.
Sydenham College and
Right.
WIA, and we did that. And then I went to the office. But some years back, when Saryuben died, Vinod Khanna was married to Saryuben's daughter. Saryu Daftari, who was the president of Indian Business Chamber,
Okay.
Walchand Group.
So he was from a business family, Vinod Khanna? Vinod Khanna was from a business family?
Saryuben's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Vinod Khanna is married to Saryuben's daughter.
Okay, okay.
So Saryuben, there was a death in the family, and therefore I went there because I knew her very well. Then he was sitting there, Vinod Khanna. So, then we talked about school and college and then life. And, we were at Chandanwadi crematorium. So he himself asked me, he said, "Sir, did you find out who was responsible for your..."
For your...
So I said, "I didn't find out, but now I know." He became very friendly.
Right. So beyond that, I think Mr. Deepak Parekh, Mr. K.K. Mistry and many others.
Dilip Piramal.
Dilip Ramal. Oh.
Deepak Parekh,
Wow.
K.K. Mistry.
Wow. So you yourself as an institution, and you have created institutions across.
Yeah, I think it was a great thing because Sydenham College was the best college in the whole of
Those
Asia.
days, yes, you are right.
So we used to get the cream of
Students.
talent.
Yeah.
So to some extent it was the college which made. But the other thing was that I was a very serious teacher. And I used to make my lectures also very, very interesting and light-hearted.
Wow. That's good. So, Bansi bhai, what do you think the success means in today's time?
I think success is something which is to be related to the field in which you are working. If you are working in a business, then your success is how much turnover goes up, how many employees perform better. These are the things. So,
Right.
if you are a chartered accountant, then your success is measured by how well you did your work, not how much did you do.
Oh, wonderful. Very
How well you did your work.
Right.
And the fact that you are the subject matter of respect and not the other way around.
Right. So, when you say well, so it gives impression of the excellence, not the perfection.
No. Excellence, see, there is a very fine book which of course not available nowadays, but Professor A. Gardiner is an American on excellence.
Okay.
Is a book,
Okay.
Oxford University,
What is the title of the book?
on excellence.
On excellence. Okay.
Professor Gardiner.
Gardner. Okay.
And his point is, I mean, in a short sentence, can we be excellent and equal to? Or in our effort to be equal, are we sacrificing excellence?
Wow.
That was
Brilliant. Yes.
I had read that book and I translated it in my life.
Yeah, we have seen that, sir. That's great. Bansi bhai, during your times, early, 60s, 70s, 80s, and today's time, the profession has changed a lot. If I say it's a 360-degree, it's not exaggeration. What do you think, of the today's time? Where do you see the profession compared to your times?
Yeah. This is something which we had anticipated.
Okay.
That as the popularity of our course or our profession grows, the numbers will grow. And as numbers will grow, the clamor for work will grow. And clamor for work would sometimes mean that people will use unprofessional means to get work. So how to balance? So we had a committee appointed, I was not president at that time, and we said that this is how we can balance the two. But personally, and that is what the report also said, that it is always good to have a growing profession.
That's important.
It is never to bar entry.
Yeah. It has to be
Never to
dynamic.
restrict entry.
Yeah, you have to have dynamism.
You have to do it.
Hmm.
And I said the greatest mistake which the government or the Britishers made was to limit the number of people who will pass IAS.
Hmm.
Let the profession be open. Ours is the only profession in which there is complete openness.
Yeah, we don't have any bar on the number
And
of
fortunately, because I and Mr. Narelwala were on the review committee for two different committees.
students.
We made sure that that openness of the profession remained in openness for all.
Bansi, during your time, you did not have competition because the audit was prerogative of the auditors, the accountants, and tax laws were incidental to the practice. But today, things have changed. The chartered accountant is not only now confined to the audit and tax, but then the complete
Absolutely.
business solution. So, and you need to compete with other sister professionals like MBAs and many others, and the consulting firms and all. So, I think the changes which are taking place in our profession, you think that these are required and welcome
This is a
changes?
philosophical issue.
Yeah.
That when you have a profession and you train a person to be qualified for that profession, you are also holding out a promise that you will get work.
Fantastic.
It can't be both ways.
You're right. Very right.
So you have to provide work. So how
Right.
do you provide work?
Hmm.
For that, one has to do a lot of public work.
Hmm.
And in review committee, we also dealt with this issue. How do we maintain our outward profile so respected that any new field will not be denied to us?
Hmm.
Of course, that didn't continue for long because there were bureaucratic pressures and some of our other professionals did not like that we. I'll just give you one example. I was appointed by the government, Manmohan Singh ji's government, as a member of a committee for valuers.
Okay.
And the present finance minister of West Bengal was a secretary in company law. And they were trying to take the view that we should restrict. So, when I read some of the pages which were given to me by them, somebody had drafted it. So I immediately said that you give me the full report, draft report, and I would like to write a minute of dissent. The present finance minister of West Bengal was the chairman of that committee.
Oh, Mitra.
Mehta. So they were what to do. So I didn't wait for their reply, and I drafted my minute of dissent and sent it to the committee. Was dissolved by the government. So standing up for a principle still has lots of people who buy.
Right. So, in the evolving time of our profession, it has evolved a lot. Do you think that there are limitations in our, in our carrying or the professional limitations which we all encounter on a regular basis? So, do you think there's a mismatch?
There are two things. Our profession is nothing but a part of the society.
Very right.
So if the society is decaying, then we cannot miss our own share.
You are right, very right.
So to some extent, the declining standards in the rest of the country and the rest of the society will also get permeated into our profession. But you can't crown, as Mr. Palkhiwala used to say, you can't crown mediocrity because there is so much of it around you.
Right, very right.
So similarly, the fact that it exists does not make us any less convinced that this is not to be done.
Very true. So we have to be more pragmatic in our approach.
Pragmatic in the sense that the way I look at it is ethics is something which is an absolute.
Well,
Ethics not something which is relative to circumstances.
oh, brilliant.
So, my view is that, in fact, I'm just giving you one example. The government had appointed me as an expert member for interviewing the candidates for Provident Fund Commissioners post. So all assistant Provident Fund Commissioners had applied, and so I didn't know what to ask, because I said that this is something which is not my subject. So I asked the Union Labour Secretary. So he said, look, this is because the government has a rule that Union Public Service Commission means that there must be an expert. And they said this is accounting subject, not our expertise. So you have been included. So I said, but what do I do? I'm not going to write their accounts, or I'm not going to review what they are writing. I said, no. And he was a person from Goa, a very fine person, he was the Union Labour Secretary. So he told me, he said, look, just follow a simple rule. The major curse in Provident Fund departments is corruption. So anyone who wants to take a loan from his Provident Fund because of sickness or because of any permitted contingency, there is a cut. So you ask a question to everyone. What is the position? How many loans were sanctioned and how many loans were rejected or kept pending, etc. Then you form your own judgment. Who is the person who is not who doesn't like this corruption? He was the Union Labour Secretary. So I suggested someone from Northeast, Meghalaya.
Right.
Everybody, there was only one post.
So, Bansi bhai, what is your message to our young and budding members? They are in the process of setting up the practice or either going for the job. So, what is that guidance you would like to give?
Yeah, I think one is to get this dissatisfaction from our mind out.
But how do you do? You are part of the material society.
You have to, because if you wanted to make money, the day you start and the next year and the year thereafter, then as Mr. Gatalia used to say, all that you have to do is to print notes, forge notes. That is also a way of doing it. You get money. So I think everyone who comes to the profession has to accept a waiting period, ethics, and the fact that you will succeed, but you will succeed not immediately, but by working hard, establishing your name, pursuing work with some greater expertise. So it's a combination of things that is required to be done.
You're right.
But I can understand that the cost of education, the cost of person becoming CA has gone up. Because,
tremendously, yeah. And also surviving in a city like Mumbai is very, very difficult initially.
So, this is another thing on which I was not very successful, is to upgrade the rates at which our members charge.
Very true. It's, yeah.
So, we have issued from time to time the scales that you should do this, but I am told it is more on paper. You are not able to charge that.
Yeah, because of competition from
competition or whatever it is. But I personally believe that we have to earn dignity.
So that the dignity capital multiplied with the what you earn, that has to balance your desire and the satisfaction.
And the other thing is, of course, that there are various fields which are available in the early days of your practice, which can supplement your income.
Okay.
Do internal audits.
Okay.
Do something which is part-time. In my days, a couple of friends were also doing tuitions.
Right. But nowadays it's time of specialization, Bansi bhai. So people tend to go for specialization, and I think there they get better premium both in job as well as practice.
See, this is a perpetual dilemma for any part of the society.
Right.
That do you want to become an honorable member of the society, an honorable part of the society, or you want to be a wealthy part of the society? I am saying wealthy is a relative term.
Very right.
Therefore, I have always maintained that when you become a professional, whether you are a lawyer or an accountant or an insurance agent or whatever, you are accepting certain inherent limitations on what you can do and what you cannot do.
Great. Last question, Bansi bhai. What is your message to our very dear students?
We are a part of a great profession. Compared to any other profession in India, I think we have done very well. I look at it more from the point of view of not what we couldn't do, but what we have done. And I believe that we have done very well.
Very well, yes.
And if you compare the respect that we have earned from government and politicians and others.
And industry.
I was, just to give you an example, I was chairman of the International Federation of Accountants Education Committee. So Paris invited me to give a talk on professional ethics.
Wow.
So I had to, I said, I don't know French. They said, no, you speak in English. There will be simultaneous translation for. So I think ethics still has a great attraction for most people. But somehow or the other, I think this haste of making money
that is
comes in the way of also developing an ethical side of your life.
So during student life only one has to have understanding of ethics and the way we should be conducted.
I think that is why when I was teaching CA students, because Mr. Gatalia was the chairman of regional council at that time. So he asked me, he said, why don't you take this revisional lecture CA in the evening at Sydenham College? So one of the subjects, though he said this subject, two subjects he asked me to take, government system of accounting and another was professional ethics. And he added in his own sarcastic way, these are two subjects which are not liked by anyone.
It's wonderful and great, Bansi bhai, talking to you. And we have unfolded many chapters of your knowledge, understanding, and brilliance. And I'm sure that it would help we, the members.
I think I'm just an ordinary member of the profession. It is a different thing that I also became a president, but that is something which happens to some fortunate ones.
That is why, Bansi bhai, people say for you, Murti Lahan, Kirti Mahan. That is why people say for you, Murti Lahan. I mean, you look short, but Kirti Mahan, you have very high persona, very tall persona. Thank you, Bansi bhai. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure our audience would get enlightened with this. Thank you very much.